Hey, Scarefest fans, this is Joe Lewis of Bonehead Weekly. I've got another review, and this one's on Hulu. You can find it on Hulu, Meredith. My hat crooked. Anyway, Old Crow Medicine Show. This movie's called The Wretched. Now, what I find fascinating before we even get to whether the movie sucks or not, or whether you should watch it, is the time frame in which it came out. In May of 2000, this little independent movie made by these two young kids from Michigan, was the number one movie in May 2020 for 5 weeks. Now you think, how in the hell did that happen? Well, we were in the middle of the coronavirus, and this was one of the few films that was out there, and drive-ins still needed content. There were still a few theaters open, still some small ones, and drive-ins were open. I went to the drive-in a few times in Paris, Kentucky. Shout out to the Bourbon Drive-Ins. Great place if you ever get a chance. Paris, Kentucky this summer had a blast. Because of COVID, you couldn't go anywhere, and drive-ins are open. You could have a good time. The Wretched played for 5 weeks, number one across the United States. Now, I actually don't know if it played at the Bourbon Drive-In. This little movie, made for probably less than $1 million, which is nothing when it comes to budgets of films, was number one for 5 weeks because of COVID. The other thing is the two kids who made this, their dad worked on the original Evil Dead, which was also out of Michigan, shot in Tennessee. But Sam Raimi, Bruce Campbell, Rob Tappert, all those people were from Michigan. So it's just funny, 40 years later, a little movie is number one at the drive-ins. It's from the same kind of lineage. Now, The Wretched. What's The Wretched about? Well, it's about a witch. I kind of liked it. If you actually go on IMDb, the rating for it is a 5.8. I say that's about right. Probably 6.2, 6.3 maybe for me. A defiant teenage boy struggling with his parents' imminent divorce faces off with a 1,000-year-old witch who's living beneath the skin of and posing as the woman next door. Now, I don't know how they know she's 1,000 years old. There may have been a throwaway line, and I didn't get that at all. But there's basically a witch who lives under a tree out in the woods in Michigan, and every once in a while she comes out and eats people. And she lives in usually women, and she kind of travels from woman to woman until she eats enough people and goes back and lives in her tree. Basically, kids. She wants to eat kids. Now, that's an old story, right? It's not really sounds anything interesting or new, and it's kind of, well, she lives under a tree. Yeah, but it's actually really well made. This is not the world's best acted film. I've talked about this before. One of the reviews calls it a great effort, but fundamentally basic. That's probably fairly accurate, but it's not an awful film. In fact, I'm going to recommend it. If you have Hulu, check it out. I like The Wretched. I actually kind of like the ending. It doesn't just quite end where you think it has one of those bullshit horror things where they, oh my God, it's not this person, it's the other person. But before that, when the boy is going under the tree, not to give too much away, and it's kind of the final fight, it looks good. For a low budget film, this movie looked really good. I talked about this last week in the last film. This one's not quite as cinematic as the Mortuary Chronicles, but it's pretty damn well made. And I enjoy low budget films. I know how movies are made, and I love it when I see they took a very small amount of money and made that. So check out The Wretched. It's on Hulu. If you like witches, if you like children in peril, it's not overly graphic, but it does have some blood. It does have some guts. It does have some gore. So check out The Wretched. I'd probably give it a 6. If you have Hulu, don't rush, but check out The Wretched. Thanks. This has been Joe Lewis of Bonehead Weekly.